You know that feeling when your credit card statement shows up and you look at the number and you think, how? Like you weren't doing anything crazy. You weren't buying designer clothes or flying business class. You were just living. Groceries, gas, that one dinner, a few online purchases that felt totally reasonable at the time. And somehow, you're staring at a balance that's going to take you months to pay off. And the worst part? You don't even remember what half of it was for. That's where we're starting today. My name is James, and I spend way too much time thinking about credit cards. And I mean that, like embarrassingly too much time. If you're someone who has ever felt like credit cards are working against you instead of for you, or you've ever paid interest and felt that gut punch of knowing you basically just handed money to a bank for no reason, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. All right. Let's get into it. Here's the thing. Credit cards are one of the most misunderstood financial tools in existence. And I'm not saying that to sound dramatic. I'm saying it because most people fall into two camps. Camp 1, they think credit cards are basically free money with rewards attached. Swipe now, worry later. Camp 2, they've been burned before. They're terrified of credit cards and they avoid them completely. And look, both of those camps are leaving serious money on the table because the people in Camp 1 are paying billions in interest every year, and the people in Camp 2 are missing out on credit building, consumer protections, and yes, real legitimate rewards. Here's the stat that kicks me in the stomach every time I say it. According to the Federal Reserve, the average credit card interest rate in the US right now is sitting around 22 to 22%. 22%! Meanwhile, the average savings account is paying you what? 4, maybe 5% if you're lucky, and you've actually moved your money to a high yield account. So the bank is charging you 22% to borrow money and paying you 4% to store it. That gap, that's the business model. That's what we're dealing with. And it gets worse. The American Bankers Association reported that about 55% of credit card holders carry a balance month to month. That means more than half of people using credit cards are paying interest, which means more than half of people are using credit cards wrong. Not because they're bad with money, not because they're irresponsible, but because nobody sat them down and explained how this thing actually works. That's what we're doing today. Okay, so this is where I need you to pay attention, because this math, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's say you have a credit card with a $3,000 balance. Pretty common number, right? Nothing outrageous. And your card has a 22% annual interest rate, which again is about average right now. Most people look at that and think, okay, 22% of $3,000 is $660 a year in interest. That's annoying, but manageable. But that's not how it works. Credit card interest compounds daily. So they take your 22% annual rate, divide it by 365 days, and apply that to your balance every single day. That daily rate is about 0.0603%. Tiny number, right? Here's the problem. It's running every day, and it's being applied to your current balance, including yesterday's interest. Now, let's say you're making minimum payments. On a $3,000 balance, your minimum payment might be somewhere around $60 to $75 a month. Sounds okay. Here's what actually happens. If you only make minimum payments on that $3,000 balance at 22%, it will take you approximately 17 years to pay it off, and you will pay roughly $4,200 in interest alone. On a $3,000 purchase, you essentially bought whatever you bought twice. Now, you might be thinking, okay, James, nobody actually only pays the minimum. And you're right, most people pay more than the minimum. But here's the thing. Do you know exactly how much you need to pay to clear a balance in 12 months, 24 months? Most people don't. They just pay a bit extra and hope for the best. And the banks are absolutely counting on that. If you want to pay off that $3,000 in 12 months at 22%, you need to pay about $280. That's your target number. Not the minimum, not a little extra. $280. Specific, concrete, knowable. Now, here's what most people don't realize, and this is the part I find genuinely fascinating. It's not really about math literacy, because if it were just about the math, everyone who understood the math would be fine. But that's not what happened. The credit card industry has spent decades and literally billions of dollars studying human psychology to make sure you spend more than you intend to. And I'm not being conspiratorial here. This is documented. This is their job. Let me give you the 3 biggest psychological traps, because once you know these, you'll start noticing them everywhere. Trap number 1. the decoupling effect. There's research out of MIT, a study literally done with real auction bidders, that showed people are willing to pay up to twice as much for the same item when paying by credit card versus cash. Twice as much. Why? Because handing over physical cash creates a psychological pain of paying. You feel the loss. But swiping a card? That pain is almost completely eliminated. The transaction feels abstract, digital, painless. This is why casinos use chips instead of cash. Same principle. The moment you remove the physical sensation of money leaving your hands, your brain stops tracking it the same way. Trap number 2, mental accounting gone wrong. Here's a scenario. You've been really disciplined all month. You cooked at home, you skipped the fancy coffee, you said no to that impulse purchase. And then you get a $200 cashback reward credited to your card. What do most people do? They spend it, usually on something they wouldn't have otherwise. Because psychologically, that $200 feels like found money, like it doesn't count the same way as earned money. But here's the reality check. If you earned that $200 cashback on a card you're carrying a balance on at 22%, you essentially borrowed money at 22% to earn 2% back. That is not a good trade. That is a profoundly bad trade dressed up in a rewards wrapper. And trap number 3, the minimum payment anchor. This one is sneaky. When your credit card statement shows you a minimum payment due, let's say $65, that number becomes an anchor in your brain. Behavioral economists have shown that the presence of a minimum payment figure actually reduces how much people pay, even when they have more money available. The bank is literally telling you $65 is acceptable, and your brain, looking for a shortcut, takes the hint. They're not doing you a favor by showing you that number. They're nudging you toward the most profitable behavior for them. Okay, let's talk about credit scores for a second because there's a huge misconception here that I need to address. A lot of people think carrying a balance, like leaving some money on the card month to month, helps their credit score. I hear this constantly. I leave a small balance to show I'm using it. Look, I understand where that came from, but it is flat out wrong, and it is an expensive myth to believe. Your credit score does care about credit utilization. That's the percentage of your available credit that you're using. And yes, having some utilization is better than zero in many scoring models. But here's the key thing. Your credit bureaus snapshot your utilization based on your statement balance, not your payment behavior. So if your statement closes with a $500 balance on a $2,000 limit, that's 25% utilization, which is actually decent. You can then pay that $500 in full, zero interest. Credit score still reflects the utilization. Carrying a balance to month 2 does nothing for your score. Nothing. It just costs you money. The myth that you need to carry a balance to build credit has cost people, I'm not exaggerating, probably hundreds of millions of dollars in unnecessary interest payments. It is one of the most expensive financial myths floating around. Okay, so here's where the conversation flips, because I don't want this video to just be a horror show about credit cards. Credit cards, used correctly, are genuinely one of the most powerful financial tools available to regular people. I mean that. Let's talk about what used correctly looks like. The people who win with credit cards, and I mean genuinely come out ahead, they operate by what I call the 3 non-negotiables. Non-negotiable number 1, never spend money on a credit card that you don't already have in your bank account. This sounds obvious, but think about how often people violate this rule. They put something on the card thinking, I'll have the money by the time the bill comes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And 1 month of not having it is all it takes to start carrying a balance. The mindset shift is this. Treat your credit card like a debit card with a 30-day float. When you swipe, mentally subtract that money from your checking account immediately. The card is just the payment vehicle. The money still needs to exist. Non-negotiable number 2, pay your full statement balance every month, without exception. Not the minimum, not most of it. The full statement balance. This is the bright line. The moment you stop doing this, you lose the game. Because the interest rate doesn't discriminate. It charges you the same 22% whether you're carrying $50 or $5,000. And look, I know life happens. Emergencies happen. Sometimes you literally cannot pay in full. If that's the situation you're in right now, I want you to stop putting new purchases on that card immediately. Stop the bleeding first, then attack the balance. But as a default operating mode, full balance every month.